right? Well, the ones he hasn't bought of his friends, that is. And I would say 90% of them he's got for talking too much in class. You know, so where he gets it from.
Yes, indeed, David. You got visions of the Simpsons coming on there, writing on that whiteboard right at the beginning over and over again. I hope it's something a little bit more scientific than that.
He was selling bottles of Prime from them the other day, Tim.
Oh yeah.
How
was it get hold of that?
Bottle of Prime. Those of you know what Prime is, bottles of Prime are getting you about 4 or 5 codes.
Yeah, or maybe they're illegal ones. Who knows?
Sorry, anyway, I shut up now.
Indeed. No, thanks, Dave. Okay, we're going to get started in a minute because although we've got a couple of hours, there's quite a lot to get to. So if colleagues could just bear with us as other people join for the next couple of minutes or so. But let's get started because it is 2 o'clock. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name's Tim Savage. I'm the Regional Finance Director for the North East in Yorkshire. And I've got the pleasure of chairing this afternoon's session, which is intended to give you all a little bit of an update on what's One NHS Finance all about, and more importantly, what can you get from it and what can you contribute towards it, both to help yourself do your current job, but also thinking as you look to develop your own career going forward as well. It is one of those initiatives where you get as much of it, much out of it as you put into it. So one of the things we always say right at the beginning is that we really encourage all engagement. It's all really useful stuff. And no matter what you do, you will get something from it as well. So please do feel free to engage in the process. We are recording this session today, so I hope that's okay with everyone. So we can put it up on the website for those who were not able to make it this afternoon. So thank you for everyone that's been able to make it. I am very conscious of just how busy it is for everyone at the moment, with so much going on, even at a kind of regular, if it was in a regular rhythm of events with managing out this financial year, planning for next, etc. But of course, with all the current challenges we've got around urgent care, ambulances, strikes, industrial actions and everything else as well, just really, really conscious how busy everyone is. And a big thank you from me to all of you for all the work that you are doing to make sure that the service is still continuing doing everything that it needs to do whilst some of our teams are having to focus on those issues as well. It is not lost on anyone just how hard everyone is working at the moment. So what I'm going to do is just for the next 5 minutes or so is kind of give you a bit of a general introduction to what One NHS Finance is about and how we are approaching it across our 4 systems and region in our part of the world. We'll then go into a number of sessions where we'll kind of get into that into a bit more detail. So hopefully through those sessions, you'll then get a bit more of an understanding of what are the key areas of focus and how you can get involved and equally what you can get from that. So I'll make sure that steal people's thunder as we go along. What we'll also look to do is those sessions are roughly about half an hour each. So we'll just have a bit of a pause after each of those sessions as to see if anyone's got any questions, etc. to ask. So please feel free to ask anything. There's no such thing as a daft question in these kind of situations. So please do ask. And if I could ask you to do the usual approach of putting your hand up if you want to ask a question, and if you could put yourself on mute in between any contributions you're making, just so we can manage the noise, etc. So Natasha, can I ask you just to go on to the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. So I think I probably covered everything that I needed to say on that one. One of the issues I will be coming on to a bit later is that One NHS Finance, although it has been doing the rounds now for well over a year, in some ways it's still very much in its infancy. So there is still the real opportunity there to contribute to its own development rather than just assuming everything is in place there. And one of the things we'll come on to talk to later is we do actually have some engagement now sorted out for each of our 4 systems. So there is someone to help really just make sure that we maximise our engagement and understanding across each of our 4 systems. So I'll come on to that a bit later. Next slide, please, Natalie. So one of the often questions is, what is One NHS Finance? Where do I find out more about it? So one of the best resources we have is the website. So you'll be getting copies of these slides after today's session, as well as it being recorded, but we'll just put the web link up on there, and you'll find there's lots of resource on there explaining what One NHS Finance is, some good case studies of good practice across different parts of the country, and this will be a resource that we only expand further as we develop the overall program, etc. But it's a really good introduction into One NHS Finance, and we'll talk more about the local reps a little bit later on as well. Thanks, Natasha. Okay, so what is it all about? It's really got 2 or 3 kind of key underlying ethos and values underneath it all. One is about making sure that we have a really good improvement and development opportunity that is available to all across all parts of the system, all organisations, and for all within the organisation. One of the key challenges with the NHS being so big, and our region and 4 systems also being large, is that there's lots of really, really good stuff going on across all of our systems and organisations, but we haven't always been that good at then sharing all that best practice to make sure that everyone doesn't have to reinvent from scratch, or, you know, taking advantage of work that's already been done elsewhere. So one of the key ethoses of One NHS Finance is to make sure we do spread that learning and that engagement as far as we can. And you'll see that when we come on a bit later on this afternoon, we talk about opportunities to be engaged within those processes. And we also talk about some of the networks you can join as well, which are our other ways of trying to share those best practices. Thanks, Natasha. Okay, so next one then is, how is it organised then? So One NHS Finance principally is focused around 3 key themes. So we've got the National Finance Academy, Future Focus Finance, and Innovation. Now, I'm not going to talk in any great detail now about what goes on in each of those themes, because that is very much what David and colleagues are going to come on to in our next part of this afternoon's meeting. But we organise it around 3 key themes, and we make sure that we are up to date on what our actions are and what our progress is through that, through a regional board that we've got established. And I'll talk a little bit about who's on that board and what we do in a minute. That is all overseen by a national kind of oversight group, which has the likes of Julian Kelly on, so NHS England's finance director, and other key leaders within healthcare, to make sure that it's got that ownership and making sure it has the drive that it needs. And indeed, I think it's actually today when that council is leading, we've all been asked to kind of give a bit of an update report on the progress that we're making. So we'll come back a little bit later on in the session to talk much more about those themes and what goes on behind it. Thank you. Next slide. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but like I said, you will get the slides through later. But these are the kind of key areas that we are asked from a kind of consistent national perspective to make sure that we are engaging with. And we've taken those and we've looked to see where we think we've got a bit more of a local need to enhance those. So again, I'll let you read those a little bit later on to make sure we make the most of the time this afternoon. Thank you. Next slide. And move on to the next one, please. So this is the kind of progress report that we have just, sorry, if you just go back a couple, please, and next one, please. Yeah. Sorry, just going backwards a bit. So next one, that's the one. Fantastic, thank you. So in terms of our own arrangements then of how we have got One NHS Finance organised across our region, we have a kind of steering and oversight group that we established last March. We've met 4 times, and our next meeting is actually next week. Membership is very comprehensive, so we have our ICB finance directors, we have our skills development networks, HMFA, acute community shared service, and all sorts of different reps on there to try and make it as inclusive as possible. What we also have is linked into non-finance groups as well. because we want to make sure that we don't do any of this stuff in isolation or as a bit of an island. There's lots we can learn from our non-finance networks as well. And what we do is in each of our meetings, we go through the action plans against those 3 key themes of the Finance Academy, Future Focus and Innovation each meeting. So we go through the progress we've made and what's outstanding, where do people need help to develop those action plans. And we also focus then on a specific topic. So ones we've covered so far are sponsorship, equality, diversity, inclusion. And next week, we'll be doing a bit of a focus around recruitment and offering feedback through interview processes. And our aim is to make sure that we have programs that we can then distribute across all organisations and systems so everyone can get the learnings from that. That is something that we really always need to keep a good focus on. We won't have got it absolutely right and as we want it at the moment, but it is something that we're working really, really hard to try and make sure we get that coverage. Thanks, Natasha. Next slide, please. So one of the areas we have done is we have through each of our integrated care boards, our systems, we've allocated and agreed a kind of lead name to help coordinate within each of our systems, just to make sure that all the kind of good practice and the good stuff that we've got going on, we've got a bit of a link in to make sure that's spread as far as and wide as we can do. So this definitely isn't the only job for those individuals that are listed there, but they are a key link in. So more and more you'll see the likes of Joe, Emma, Leslie and Roxanne starting to share some of the good practice as well and linking in with our networks. So that's just to make sure that we you can see we are listening to some of the challenges that we've got and trying to respond to those. Next slide, please. So we'll talk about this later on in terms of what each of the networks do, but we've already got some pretty good coverage across most of our networks, but it isn't consistent within every organisation. So that's something that we're looking to build on. So we've got virtually all of our organisations have a diversity ambassador in all but one of our systems, and there's good progress in that final one. We've got over 600 that are signed up to the Value Makers approach, which we'll come on to a bit later. And you can see where we are in health and wellbeing champions in other areas as well. We're also doing a lot of work around equality, diversity, inclusion, and we've done some quite big programs on making sure that for our leaders in our systems have the opportunity to meet with colleagues from our more underrepresented groups to understand how it feels to walk and work in their shoes. This obviously helps in making sure that we plan how we, develop and our services and way of working the best way possible. So just a couple of examples there. Next slide, please, Natasha. In terms of challenges and our priorities, what we're looking to do, we want to make sure that we are sharing best practice around recruitment. It's something that we often get feedback on about making sure it's a fair and equitable process and making sure that feedback is really good and helpful, and also that secondment opportunities are made as most available as possible, and for all within our organisations as well. We're also looking to make sure that we rerun some kind of events where we get to hear what some of the key challenges people are facing are, so we can make sure that our plans are developed on meeting those challenges. We talked already about making sure we maximise engagement within our systems, and accreditation again is something that we're going to come on to a little bit later on in the meeting today. Last slide from me, I think, Natasha. We talked about making sure as well that we expand the number of innovation best practice examples we have. Often the key issue with that is getting people to realise that what they do is good stuff. They often think they're just doing what everyone else does, when actually a lot of the stuff isn't done elsewhere. So that's one of the key areas that we are looking to expand engagement in. And within all this, we are really keen to make sure that the data that we use as well is as accurate and up to date as it possibly can be, because that's how we do a lot of our decision making. So another key area we need to look at. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of the key parts of 1HS Finance. What we're going to do now for the next half an hour or so is just go through those 3 key things I talked about, including innovation, Finance Academy, Future Focus Finance. And with the help of David, Kathy and Adrian, we're going to go through the kind of key actions for each of them. So I think, is it David and Simon that are going to start off with future focus finance?
I think I start
that's
off.
Great,
Yeah.
Simon.
Great.
And if we could ask colleagues just to kind of keep to around about no more than 10 minutes each, so we've got a bit of time for questions later. And over to you, Simon.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's fine. All right. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. It's Simon from Leeds Teaching Hospitals. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about, or me and David are, about future focus finance. So can I have the first slide, please? So what is it? Well, it's part of One NHS Finance. It's a national programme. It's about, though, the sort of bottom up, bringing the enthusiasm and creativity of all our colleagues into work to support each other to do great things in NHS finance and to be the best place to work. Yeah, so we're looking to bring in all staff together, and a symbol of your sort of joining in of that, you're signing up to be positive and wanting to do good stuff, is signing up as a value maker. And you get a nice lanyard and everything, and access to loads of really good stuff, and you part of the network. And we've got over 3,000 value makers now nationally. So it's real opportunity through that network to collaborate, share good ideas, and really support each another. And some areas of key focus: promoting NHS finance careers, supporting our staff, networking and sharing of good ideas. Really important bit, and this is where the finance and clinical educators come in, which is another thing that you can sign up for if you do a bit of finance and clinical educating, is demystifying NHS finance. I think really important to note that sometimes in finance, we think that clinical colleagues aren't interested in managing of resources and things like that, and it's a bit of a pain for them. Well, I really challenge that. We run national events and run by a clinician, and we get last one, I think we had over 300 clinicians attend that event online to learn about NHS finance. So, you know, those colleagues really do want to help manage resources in the NHS. And then really important, sort of wraps all around it, that making NHS finance a great place to work. And we're focused on that. So next slide, please. And here's some of the specifics. I'm not going to read them all out because I know you can read, but just pick out some of them. So on the promoting the NHS finance careers, there's all sorts of good stuff going on. But I really do encourage you to have a look at the NHS Finance Careers portal that's been set up. Really good resource. You can find it by Googling One NHS Finance. Yeah, really, really good, and helping all the time colleagues amongst a load of other initiatives like getting out to schools and things like that, trying to get that pipeline of people coming in to NHS Finance, and recognising that we want that to be the career of choice. If you want to be an accountant, why wouldn't you want to be an accountant in the NHS? Absolute best place to work. Then in terms of supporting our staff, we've got a huge number of events, but we've got a resource pack that we're bringing out sort of soon that pulls all that together to talk about how in teams we can work together and feel really empowered and positive. We've just taken one through Financial Leadership Council this morning, which is about supporting staff through the cost of living crisis. Great work of health and wellbeing champions. Okay, so lots of stuff we're doing there. Networking, there's a huge network there. I've already mentioned we've got over 3,000 value makers. There's an MS Teams platform with over 4,000 people on. I've talked about the demystifying NHS finance and loads of stuff around making finance a great place to work. I'll pick out the accreditation process there, where you know, if you go through that accreditation process, you can get accredited. It's a way of celebrating your great work, but it's also giving assurance that you've got all the things in place around supporting staff, finance staff development, and supporting the organisation to make sure that you're a great place to work. And we are running, and I encourage a thank you campaign. So the easiest and best way of celebrating a bit of success of your teams and just being making people feel appreciated is to thank them for what they're doing. So you know, thanks for listening to my first two slides, and I encourage you to do that. And then I'm handing over to David.
Thanks, Simon. So I've got a few slides to take you through this. We start with some statistics. I hasten to add it's not a competition, or is it? But it's probably helpful just to sort of share with you what the numbers look like. I mean, we're always conscious that it's not about the statistics per se, because what we don't want to do is, if you like, hit the target, miss the point. But in terms of value makers, finance and clinical educators, health and wellbeing champions, and inclusion and diversity ambassadors, just sometimes helpful to sort of see how we're getting on, especially in percentage terms, in terms of engagement. And if you look at us there across the patch and compare us to averages and the like, you can see how we're getting on. Now, I will sort of drill down to that a little bit, but just sort of so you can see that we're probably in North Eastern Yorkshire, I would sort of say, you know, in the middle of the pack, if that makes sense. You know, not as good as some, but better than others. But actually, if you drill down to the next one, next slide, please. Here you can see just a little bit more about how we're getting on, if you like, drill down to another level. So you can see how many we've got in your particular patch. Now, what I would say is, bear in mind that if I take value makers, for example, yes, we might have, say, 78 in South Yorkshire. But one of the questions is how well spread is that? Because sometimes we might find ourselves with a lot of value makers in one organisation, and then maybe not so many in others. And that's something we're keen to focus on. Things I want to mention as well on top of this is inclusion and diversity ambassadors. We've done a lot of really good work to try and make sure that at least every organisation has one. We're not quite there yet. We've done a lot of good work in that area, and the network is really well led, and it's got lots of things going on. And same with Health and Wellbeing Champion in terms of there being a network and a network lead. Maybe not quite in the same place as I&D, but it's getting there. So if you're interested in getting involved and taking a leadership role, there are some areas that you could actively, get involved in that, that you think actually, yes, that's something I would like to do. And you can maybe see here where the gaps are. You can talk to the likes of Joanne Pilling or wherever your link is in terms of, well, what does it look like for my patch and where would be the best place to use my skills? Other things I'll just quickly add, as Tim was saying, you'll get an awful lot out of what you put into this type of environment, and it can not only benefit you, but it'll also benefit your organisation. And I'll just give you a quick example. We know statistically, it's been proven that those organisations that have the better engagement levels in areas like this, they perform better. They perform better financially, and they perform better in terms of things like recruitment and retention. So these things are really important, not just in terms of your organisation, but also changing that culture and making it a great place to work. The last bit down the right-hand side is accreditation. It's really important to see our organisations get accredited. That becomes progressively harder as you've got the levels. But what we do see from that, again, is those organisations, the more accredited they are, that the better they perform and the better they find themselves in terms of recruitment and retention, because naturally their organisations become more interesting and more exciting and better places to work. So you can see across here that we've got quite a few level ones. We've only got one level 3 in West Yorkshire. Well done, West Yorkshire. But I know a number of organisations are working in this space, and I'm expecting those numbers to start rapidly increasing. Next slide, please. So I talked about how to get involved a second ago. There are lots of opportunities in those networks, and we'd actively encourage anybody to get involved in those areas. We're constantly putting on different webinars and events that are linked to those networks or just part of the FFF program. Simon was talking about some of those. And we would really encourage you to get accredited. If you're not already accredited at level 1, it's not a difficult process to get on that journey. And we can help you. So the likes of Joanne or Roxana, they can help you with that accreditation journey. And I'll come back to that in a second in terms of successes. I think you've already shouted out the careers website, so I'll move on from there, Simon. So next slide, if that's okay. So successes. So I've got 3 to mention here. And they're just examples. So the first one there, hopefully you can sort of see there, that is County Drummond Darlington Foundation Trust. There's an F missing there. They were the first in North East North Cumbria to get to level 2 accreditation. And that's them on their away day. That's David Brown, their DOF, signing again their declaration. And if you could zoom in, I promise you can see lots of smiley, happy faces there. And that's all part of making an organisation a great place to work. So, you know, these are the things that can like really bring you together and allow you to focus on things outside of the numbers. And then just a shout out to Joanne Hardcastle and Sam Smith. There are National Value Maker Awards, and it's just really good to see our North East and Yorkshire colleagues getting recognised for some of the great work they're doing. And if you want to know a bit more about what they've been doing or what they've done, there are mechanisms to do that. And again, I would probably just encourage you to make contact with the likes of Roxana, etc. and stuff. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of just giving you a quick overview about FFF, what it's doing, and how you can get involved. Thank you. Next slide, Natasha. I think we're moving on. That's just a summary slide, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just some of the nice stuff that people have said about Future Focus Finance. So just pause and have a look at that for a moment. But I think David really echoed that point about this brings people together and makes you know, gives that great team spirit and makes people feel valued and good. Yeah.
Fantastic. So thank you, Simon and David. Is that the end of your presentation? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'll now hand over to Kathy Kennedy that will now talk through where we are on the National Financial Academy. So Kathy, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So I thought I'd start by just talking about what is being done in the national programme. I'll then go on to say a little bit about how we're delivering that national programme at local level and also what we're particularly focusing on in the region and so what some of our successes have been. So the national programme has a number of things that it's offering within the National Finance Academy area. The sponsorship programme, which I know we've got a session on later in the day, so I won't steal the thunder of the people who are going to be presenting later by going into details on these. But really aiming at high performing staff at all levels. This is not about high ranking or high or senior staff. This is about high performing staff at all levels from underrepresented groups who are looking to progress their career. A whole series of positive action programs, as an example there, around breaking diversity barriers and the development program around that. A whole suite of programs, something for everybody from Band 2 right through to people who are substantive chief finance officers. I'm not going to have time to talk about all of those today, but when the slides come out, there will be a slide on each of the programs that there are, just so you can see what's on offer and go and find out more about it if you're interested on the website, as everyone has already mentioned. They are also currently recruiting to the National Finance Leaders Talent Pool, the cohort for 2023. I nearly said the coming year, but we're in that year now, aren't we? So this is a 2-year programme, and it's specifically aimed at people who are ready now or in the very near future to become finance directors, that it's their next step. And there are many other things in development. Some examples include the new National Talent Management Strategy and also an online national finance curriculum. What the national programme has done is set targets for regional One NHS Finance boards to progress. Tim mentioned earlier who's on our One NHS Finance board in our region. So within the National Finance Academy area, the 22 targets have been set for us to be taken forward, split over 3 themes. So if we move on to have a look at that. So the 3 themes are equality, diversion and inclusion, recruitment, retention and career development, and then thirdly, leadership development. Now, you will appreciate that I haven't got time to go through 22 targets with you today, but just to give you a sense of the sort of progress that we've been making within our region. On that first theme of equality, diversity, inclusion, there were 10 targets set for the year that we're in now, and we've been able to achieve all of those. And now, this isn't about one or two people ticking boxes. This is about the engagement of the networks and the groups that we've been talking about. And as you go through the rest of this afternoon's agenda, you'll be hearing about the work that's been going on and how these things have been taken forward. But really great progress, a lot more to do. No one would suggest we're at the end of this journey. We are at the start, but really good progress so far. Recruitment, retention and career development had 8 target areas. We've got half of those already completed and the other half are well in train, and we're expecting to be meeting all of those by the end of the year. So again, a lot going on, and Tim's already mentioned that we've got a particular focus around this at our board meeting next week. And then the third area of leadership development had 4 targets for the current year. 2 of those are completed, 2 in progress. Some of this is about checking that our leaders have got the right engagement and the right systems and processes in place to be making the progress that we need to be making. So a lot of this will be being taken forward through engagement with individual organisations and with our systems to make sure that these things are being delivered. In terms of positive action programs, One NHS Finance runs a whole suite of development programs, and I know there's some further information coming on that later on the agenda. Last time I asked, which I think was a few weeks ago, had at least 28 staff in our region engaged in the different programs. But rather, as David mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily have coverage in all organisations in an even way. So we really are looking to encourage that everyone's aware of these programs, that everyone's considering them, and that all organisations are supporting their staff to take up these programs where it's appropriate for their personal development and their future career aspirations. And the last area I was just picking up on this slide was around the National Finance Leaders Talent Pool. The recruitment for that's been going on over the last few months. We have a lot of senior finance staff in our region who have been members of previous cohorts or are applying for the 2023 cohort. But perhaps what people are less aware of is that we actually have several finance directors in our region who are talent pool graduates who came out of that talent pool into their first finance director role within our region. And it's really great to see that this isn't a pool that people sit in and do nice things but don't get anywhere. It's a pool where there's a really great track record of people being able to make that next step, graduating from the pool into a leadership role in the NHS. So what are we doing more locally? If we move on to the next slide. Some of these things, again, are being discussed later in the session or have already been touched on, but just a quick kind of snapshot of some of the priorities and successes that we've had over the last year or so. So we have a really active equality and diversity group that's been overseeing making sure that we have an equality, diversity, inclusion strategy in place and an action plan that's guiding what we're doing and where we're focusing. Areas within that action plan have included things such as the sponsorship programme. 33 sponsors and 25 sponsees signed up the last time I saw. Many examples of great successes in career stories and personal development, and I know we've got a session on that later on today. And it does also include, as well as that one-on-one relationship, a really well-established sponsee network. And I think that's really important, is that you get both the networking and the one-on-one support when you enter this programme. Inclusion and diversity ambassadors have been mentioned a couple of times, so I won't go through that again. We also ran a really successful cohort of reciprocal mentoring. This is where we pair up someone from a background of protected characteristics with a leader, a senior leader in organisations who are not of that background, so that they can get a real understanding of the challenges and the barriers and the issues that are faced by people in trying to make progress when they're from one of the diverse backgrounds that we're looking to promote. So the first cohort had 25 pairings of a leader with someone from one of those backgrounds. It's really successful, great feedback from it, and a second cohort being planned for this year. So this is something that we feel is a really great success in our region, and we've actually put it forward for consideration as a national award, going back to Tim's point about let's share what we're doing and promote what we're doing and celebrate what we're doing. And Tim has already mentioned the integrated care system leaders started to get really heavily engaged on this, clear leadership about who's going to be making sure that these things are happening and known about and promoted within our individual systems, and that all partner organisations, and more importantly, all individuals in NHS Finance in those systems are engaged and aware and able to get the benefit out of the programmes that are on offer. Just moving on. So that was what I wanted to cover today, and I'll hand over now, Tim, for the final presenter on this section.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kathy. Really, really helpful there. And if I can hand over now, I think it's to Adrian.
Yeah, Tim, I think.
Yeah, it is Adrian. Yeah, to talk through innovation. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Derek's going to talk through some of the work they're doing in Mid-Yorks, and I'll just wrap up with some of the national initiatives we've got in place. Thanks. So I hope you're there, Derek.
Yeah. This is just sort of sharing a high level summary of what we've done at Mid-Yorkshire. Like I said, we've been sort of developing, trying to work on a great place to work for a couple of years. I've been here since January 21. And the front page, we had asked people, we'd seen some organisations that developed a logo or a branding, and this is one that was suggested by one of the team, the Finance More Than Numbers. And in that, we've worked in some of the working groups we've got, and the picture was when we got the team of the year, team of the week, sorry, for the trust in June. So it was quite nice to sort of share that. If you can go on to the next slide, please. When I sort of joined Mid-Yorkshire, we looked to try and sort of develop a bit of a roadmap to the engagement with FFF. And I think we've used some of the toolkits. We've tried to get some value makers to face. We've got involved with the innovation programme. We've had people on the programmes that have been put forward by the National Finance Academy as well. And I think we managed to sort of engage with the accreditation as well. I think the key part for that was getting the Director of Finance signed up as well, so it gave us the opportunity to get empowered and sort of work with the team to develop that. If you move on to the next slide, please. So this was the approach we took, and like I said, I started here in January 21, and it was in a pretty good position for getting level 1 accreditation. So we managed to achieve that in May 21. Then the next bit we thought, well, how can we sort of develop this further? And strangely, for let's say trying to promote one NHS Finance, is like we thought that the key thing for us wasn't to sort of focus on the accreditation, but to focus on how we can sort of develop the team, improve and get engagement. So we came up with these working groups, and these working groups sort of really fed in well with the criteria required in the accreditation. So we managed to get these groups. We asked all the team to identify a group they'd like to get involved in. This gave us, then we had a lead and also a deputy, so that then gave us a dozen people to sort of work together, which then formed the team development group. And that team development group then engaged with the CFO and the deputy on them like every 2 months, so we can feed back progress, anything that we've got issues with. And we also provide an update to each core brief on a monthly basis as well from these groups, so everybody's got an opportunity to know how we're developing. So we formed the groups October 21, and then the team development group was February 22, and we managed to get the level 2 accreditation October 22. So it was a really good way of getting people engaged, and we've got a team of about 80. So having that dozen people as a starting point was a really good approach, because we always get that thing about people saying that we're too busy to get involved in this. But the next slide is really where we really sort of engaged well. The Finance Innovation Forum. Now we've seen this as a really good opportunity to look at how we were working and try and develop and improve how we work as a finance team. So we've had 4 innovations approved. The links are on here to the actual innovations, and I've mentioned in the bottom half of this what we've done with it. Like we said, we've presented a lot of these at regional and national events, and we've done quite a lot of work with the SDN network as well. And I think just looking at the innovations, the 4 that we've got on here, the first one was looking at how we use the systems. We managed to automate a manual process, get better use of time and a more accurate process as well. The second one was we were looking to see, well, how can we communicate, improve communications with the team in the hybrid environment we were working in. So again, that was another really good opportunity to look at how how we worked as a team, and it was the working group who developed that as well, so that came from them. The next one was looking at reporting. I think this is an area everybody looks at. How can we use the data better? How can we save some time on it? And we developed a lot in that area on accounts payable, accounts receivable. So there's a big focus on the financial services area. And it's an unusual approach because normally it's management accounts focus. But this gave us a really good opportunity to help us focus on improving KPIs. It's helped us manage the level of debt on accounts payable and accounts receivable. And also it helped us monitor better what we were doing on BPPC. And that was an area we've had issues in previous years with. And then the last one was looking at process and procedure. And I think the bit on there is this systems maturity toolkit was something that's been there for a number of years, and I've been involved in it in other organisations as well. But I think there's a really, really good opportunity here to sort of share good practice with other organisations and look at how you work and come up with a development plan. There's 9 modules in that. And we've sort of focused on 4 in financial services. And just examples here, the procure to pay process, we did a review last year and did it again this year. It's improved from 68 to 76%. And the same with cash management, we've gone from 65 to 78. So it helps us sort of look at how we're working and find out where we can try and improve as well and identify opportunities. And I think the other bit with that is we've had people involved with the software skills network as well. And I think what we've shared these with people as well. We've had a couple of showcase events on the first 2. We've also we've got staff who sort of get involved with the networks regionally and nationally. And then just the last slide on this, just sort of sharing some of the benefits for the team. If you move on to the next slide, please. That's you've gone back this slide, sorry. Yep, thanks. So again on here, it's helped raise the profile of the sort of Mid-Yorks team. We've had quite a lot of recognition for the work that we've done. Like I said, we've been shortlisted for some regional awards. We got an award from NEP. As has been mentioned, we won one of the Value Maker Awards last year, and Sam won one this year. We've been shortlisted for Trust Excellence Awards this year as well. We were highly commended for that. And I think it's improved morale, increased confidence in the team to sort of look at opportunities to implement innovations. But it's been that engagement, and really it's a very proactive network as well to get involved in. But the Finance Innovation Assessor and also Accreditation Assessor, they're really good opportunities to share learnings from other organisations and bring things back to your organisation. So I think it's been a real good opportunity for Mid-Yorkshire to get involved in Innovation Forum. So, and if you haven't been involved in it already, I'd really recommend it.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks. So just in the interest of time, there's just two points I wanted to cover, but hopefully you can see that what they've done in Mid-Yorks, they've had solid engagement with FFF and One NHS Finance for a while now. And that's enabled them to get involved in the innovation workstream. So the innovation workstream is not as well established as some of the things that Kathy, David and Simon have talked about. But we are trying to spread engagement around innovation. We are trying to see what value it can add across finance teams. And as has been said previously, it does help build morale across the finance function. So you can see there, we do like to share the stats of what we're doing across the country, but the numbers aren't quite as impressive as what we're seeing around Value Makers and others, but they are starting to build. And North Eastern Yorkshire has actively engaged in the innovation workstream. But you can see there we've got 19 submissions across the region, and Derek's just described 4 have come from his trust. And they've been at this a little while and they've got the confidence to submit. So what I'd encourage people to do is, don't be modest. If you're doing some good work, submit it to the Innovation Forum for peer review, and we can publish it if we think it's going to add value and we think it's replicable elsewhere. So please go back to your organisation, find out what people are doing, and trying to encourage them to consider it an innovation and submit. So we're now into our 5th cohort of actively asking people to submit. They're all peer reviewed. Once they're peer reviewed, we publish them on the One NHS Finance website. And similar to what others have said, we've got a network of peer reviewers, and we want to grow that. We want to make sure that we've got peer reviewers across all organisations that can support people internally to a trust or an ICB or any NHS body, but also help share the good practice and help share what is an acceptable standard for us to promote as an innovation. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. Sorry, can you there should be another slide. Just go back one. Apologies, the slides are in a different sequence. So the only other thing I wanted to flag was the fact that we've focused today on innovation and getting people to submit innovations. What we're now starting to encourage people to do is submit ideas they've got for an innovation and problems that they want to be solved. Thank you, Natasha. So we still want innovations and we still want to peer review the innovations, but we think we've got a role to play in trying to help people solve problems. And we're going to set up a new innovation board. Now, we've got a modest amount of money, and it is a very modest amount of money, that we can financially support some ideas that need to be worked up before they can become an innovation. And we're going to launch that in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to ask for submissions through to an innovation board. And again, we'll review those ideas and hopefully we can provide some support, both in terms of financial resource and people resource to build some of these ideas up. And that's the new initiatives that we're going to run throughout this year and try and broaden the engagement. I'm not going to go through the rest of the slide deck just in the interest of time, but the last slide has got a lot of hyperlinks about how you can get involved in the innovation workstream, how you can submit innovations, and how you can express an interest in being a peer reviewer. So thank you all very much, and thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you very much as well to all our presenters over this last half an hour or so. Hopefully that's given a little bit of a starting feel about what One NHS Finance is all about, and the example that Derek just took us through then as well. Hopefully it starts to give some of the practical implementations and opportunities of that. And what's really important and useful on that, as Adrian said, is that, you know, what has been done there could easily be replicated and shared elsewhere. So lots of learning that we can all learn from each other. Just a reminder as well that we are recording this, so you'll be able to view it later on, or any colleagues who couldn't make it today, if they ask you about it, they'll be able to view it. And we will be sharing the slides as well, that's got all the various links to the information, resources, etc. on it. What I'll suggest we'll do is we'll have a little bit afterwards for questions, but I'm keen to make sure everyone on the meeting today gets to hear as much as possible what it's all about. So just to make sure we're keeping to time, I'm now going to move on to our next section, if that's okay. And what we're going to do first of all is hear from colleagues from Airedale about what it means to be in a network, what they get involved in, and you know what the opportunities are with that, and then go on to talk about some of our own programs as well that we're running for sponsorship, development and buddying schemes, just as some examples there. So if we've got Amy, Naheem and Farida ready, can I just ask you to take us through the network section? Have you got any slides you want to put up, or is it a conversation we'll be having?
I'll be going first, Tim. So I don't have any slides, but I think Naheem and Amy might. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Farida, and I'm an Inclusion and Diversity Ambassador at Airedale. So I just want to spend the next couple of minutes just talking to you about why I became an I&D Ambassador, what it means to me, and some of the things that we've done, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions afterwards. So I was actually an I&D ambassador in my last role at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. It's an area that I'm really interested in and passionate about, and I wanted to have the opportunity to be able to raise awareness and the importance of the similarities, differences and opportunities which are inherent within individuals and help and shape their workplace and the culture. So being respected and valued for our diversity is the key to ensure that we achieve true inclusion. And for me personally, the role is all about being encouraged to challenge practices that might not be inclusive. So ranging from looking at the job adverts that we publish right through to the actual interview, and then more importantly, post-interview feedback. I'm sure all of us can relate back to a time in our career where we went for an interview and the feedback wasn't particularly constructive, so you didn't really know where to focus on. So just making sure that we're giving good quality feedback, because, you know, somebody might not be successful for that particular role. But if they acted on the feedback that was given and it was good and it was good quality, you know, they might be tempted to sort of apply again. And I'm really proud to say that last year Airedale ranked as one of the 7 highest trusts in the country for inclusion and diversity within the National Staff Survey. And truly inclusive organisations are really good at utilising diverse perspectives to broaden to broaden the scope of problem solving. They also encourage collaboration and learning from differences, flexibility and fairness, and they embed these values within their organisational structures, policies and practices. It's a living, breathing thing. It's not something that you do as a one-off. It's an iterative process. As an I&D ambassador, I find that I can share best practice and also learn from other I&D ambassadors. So, for example, making sure that we were looking at job adverts and strengthening some of the disability confident employer wording as well, and being able to share that knowledge and practice. So last year, Airedale won the EDI award, and as I was presenting to other trusts, I was always picking up things that they're doing. So, for example, one trust down south had an EDI charter, which was a set of commitments and principles and what they want to achieve. And I thought that was a great idea. So I brought that back to Airedale and shared it, you know, with the wider trust. So there's always things that, you know, we might be doing and doing well, but you can always learn from other people. And that's what the network is really good for. So some of the meetings that we attend, you're always encouraged to get into smaller breakout rooms and share your experiences, which is really insightful and really helpful. So it's an active role. You know, we meet a couple of times a year. There's a couple of actions, you know, we're all encouraged to take away within our own organisations. But I found it really, really helpful just in terms of the things that we're doing. So some of the sort of outreach work that Amy Denning and her team have been involved in has been really helpful. And being able to share some of that learning and knowledge is great. So this isn't a plug to say come and be an I&D ambassador, but I had some colleagues in Sheffield that were a bit apprehensive and weren't really sure what it was about. So I invited them to one of the meetings that we have and said, come and see for yourself. I'm not here to do a hard sell. If you think you'll get some value out of it, please come and join. And it was really encouraging to see that after the first meeting they attended, some of them actually signed up to be I&D ambassadors because they could see the value that it brings. So for me personally, the network helps us to find best practice in terms of EDI, and the ambassadors can help us roll that out across NHS Finance. So that was just a quick whistle stop tour. So I'll be more than happy to take any questions, and thank you for letting me come and talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks, Frida. What we'll do is we'll look to take some questions at the end of this section, if that's okay, so people could just have a think about anything they want to ask as we go along. Amy, we're handing over to you now.
Tim, I think I'm next.
Oh, you're next, Naheem. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem at all. Hi there.
I've got some slides. So Natasha, could you share the slides, please? Hi, my name is Naheem Ahmed and I'm Head of Costing and Systems Development at Airedale. Today I'll be talking a little bit on the Finance and Educator Network, something which both Simon and Derek have alluded to previously, they just mentioned. So I'm just going to go into a bit more detail. Next slide, please. So initially, I'm just going to, the FACE network was introduced to inspire better relationships with operational staff. It helps empower operational staff and upskill them, and which leads to increased engagement and the appreciation of finance and better results. And often what we realize is within finance, we may overlook some of the teaching that we provide just because we're so busy in our day-to-day. So this is a method of logging our hours to be able to, and signing up to this. For myself, I've been able to recognize that I've been doing a lot more training and teaching than I recognized. So the logging really did help me a lot. In terms of gaining recognition, so The recognition is based, there are different levels. So level 1 accreditation, level 2 and level 3. And the teaching is for, it could be for new starters or staff who aren't engaging as much due to the knowledge gap. But some of the areas which I've trained on, people are new Power BI budget dashboards, having user-friendly patient level costing outputs, forecasting, management accounts, payroll. There's many things which we often do, which we don't often recognize or log. So for within our department, it's been really beneficial. The fourth point about demystifying finance for non-finance staff, between our whole department, we've trained many staff on finance processes, and it's a two-way process where we've learned a lot and we've been able to show others. We get to learn about the requirements of the department. And the last point to note is this is more of a collectively, it does help the organization, but it's more of a personal accreditation, which helps the individual rather than so within our trust, as a polite reminder, every few months we take a list of all the value makers, list of all the people in the FACE network, and we share it with the whole department. It just encourages people to sign up. And again, as I said, we often do the teaching, but we don't log it, and it's a very simple process of logging the hours, because it creates a portfolio and personal log. And Natasha, could we have the next slide, please? So I just want to quickly talk about how to log your hours. So the accreditation is, as I mentioned, based on 3 levels, of, depending on how many hours you have taught over a rolling 12-month period. The form is very simple to fill out. So there's personal details on the first page. The second page will have the title of the session, the date, the length of the session, and the number of delegates. And literally that is it, that's your log done. And you can log up to 4 different sessions on a form. So once you've got that, you will achieve the required accreditation. And just a point to note that you have to be part of the FACE network to be FACE certified and submit these hours. And that was a really quick summary of the FACE network. So thank you for the opportunity to present and for you listening.
Okay, thanks, Naheem. That's really helpful. And it's, as Simon and yourself have both said, it's an area that's had a lot of engagement so far, but there's always more we can do on that area as well. And in particular, when we look at some of the challenges we've got in recovering services across all parts of our NHS, then the examples of where we can work alongside our clinicians is so important moving forward. Okay, I think then, Amy, we're going to hand over to you now and to kind of give a bit of description about what the value makers are all about. So over to you, Amy.
Thank you very much. I've not been organised enough to prepare for some slides, so you just stuck with my face, I'm afraid. I just wanted to start just by getting people to put their hands up. I just wanted to gauge how many value makers are on the call and how many not value makers there are. So if you're a value maker, can you just stick your hand up really quickly for me? Just intrigued. So let's have quite a few. Yeah, we've got loads, that's brilliant. So a lot of you, I'm preaching to the converted in a lot of cases, but hopefully there's a few of you that we can convince. So from a value maker perspective, the role, as Tim said earlier, is what you make of it. It really is what you make of it. So I'm going to talk about it from a personal point of view and what it's brought to me. And it's given me so many opportunities building networks. So I've worked at Airedale for 19 years now, and I've always, up until recently, really just been in my Airedale network. But when I became a value maker, that network's widened massively, and I've now got colleagues across the region and the country that I know that I can just get in touch with, pick up the phone, give a call and just say, how do you do so-and-so? What do you think of this? And people are really willing to support and help in that respect. So that's been brilliant. It's a really good way of sharing best practice as well. So there's a few colleagues quite local to me that we meet quite regularly and share what we're doing and how we're doing it. One really good example of that is the PFR automation tool that's been brought in recently. We've been working really closely with a value maker at Calderdale, so then we can make sure that we're both taking the best out of that and making it work the best we can. So it gives you the opportunity to tap into others. The other thing it's given me is it's enabled me to get involved with things other than the numbers, I guess. I'm on a staff survey review group, so we're looking at all the staff survey results nationally to see where we can potentially improve and what we need to do to improve those staff survey results. That's been a really, really good experience, and one that I wouldn't have been able to get involved in without being a value maker. I've had a chance to present at things like this and at the HFMA conference. Don't let that put you off though. You don't have to do things like that. But it has helped me really develop and taken me out of my comfort zone and helped me develop my presentation skills and what have you. So that's been really, really positive. And I think, like I said, the main thing I've got out of it is that I've made friends. I've made new friends. I've got to know people outside of my organisation and outside of my region. Yeah, I think that's in really, really quick nutshell. That's what I've got out of being a value maker. Opportunity to build networks, sharing best practice, and tap into others and find out how others are doing things. And from the hands up there, I think a lot of you are already value makers and are probably already doing a lot of that. But I'd be interested to know what value making means to you if you want to put it in the chat and just let us know in a couple of words what it means to you. I'm going to move straight on because I'm also updating on the health and wellbeing bit as well, because I'm also a health and wellbeing champion, and I'm actually a health and wellbeing regional lead as well. So that's really fab and something that's come out of joining that network. I was going to start with, from the role, there's a health and wellbeing charter, which hopefully most of you will have seen, but if not, there's a few things that it says health and wellbeing champions would pledge to do. So it's making a positive difference within their team, to lead on supporting cultural change, and to make it easy for people to talk about wellbeing and mental health in the workplace. So that's the formality, I suppose. That's if you're interested in doing those things, then I would encourage you to sign up as a health and wellbeing champion. Again, from a personal point of view, for me, I've set up a health and wellbeing group within our organisation. And we've been trying to arrange fun things for the department to do. So we did 12 days of Christmas just before Christmas. We had 12 days and we did different things. So we did quizzes, and we did bingo, we did guess the Christmas tree. There's all sorts of different bits that we did in 12 different days, and that went down really, really well. And it just helps bring the organisation and the team together. And just, it takes us away from the stress and the strain of the everyday work and just gives us 5 minutes time out to actually relax a bit and get to know each other a bit differently. We're promoting wellbeing initiatives within the organisation. So we've got a Teams channel, a health and wellbeing Teams channel, and we publish the calendars, the wellbeing calendars at the beginning of every month, and encourage people to get involved in those. Any wellbeing initiatives that are being implemented throughout the organisation, we make sure those are promoted and that everybody's aware of it. And I regularly present at team timeouts and team check-ins, so then people are aware of all the things that are going on and are available, support that's available. We also do a wellbeing check-in. At the beginning of the pandemic, we used to do it on a weekly basis, and we'd do a bit of an emoji check-in, and we'd ask people to post an emoji which best represented how they were feeling. That isn't done quite as regularly now, because I think people got fed up of me, if I'm honest. But we do it on an ad hoc basis, and it's really good, and it's actually it's been really beneficial, because occasionally someone will put a sad face on that check-in, so that means to me that somebody's struggling a little bit, so then I'll check in with them on a one-to-one basis to check how they are. Is there any support they need? Is there anything I can do or any colleagues can do to help with whatever is concerning them at that point in time? And we quite often do ad hoc quizzes. So we've got a group Teams chat, and all of a sudden I'll just put a question on there, or some kind of quiz question, or we'll play, I can't think of the word, tenable. So you've got to say the top 10 things of something, and it's just to break the day up a little bit and just bring a bit of fun to the day. So that's really positive. And then from a regional point of view, Rachel, I think I spotted on the call, and I, as the regional leads, have pulled together a wellbeing group, regional wellbeing group. So we're meeting on a bi-monthly basis, and we're trying to do things from a regional perspective. So we're sharing in those meetings what works for us and what doesn't, and if we've got any concerns or problems, we'll share them in that forum and help each other out and give each other advice and things, which works really, really well. and we're going to try and arrange some regional events. We were hoping to do a Christmas quiz, we didn't quite get it sorted in time, but we want to do some regional events. We did do a Christmas decoration competition, so that was between different organisations, which went down quite well. And we want to start publishing regional literature as well. So any wellbeing initiatives and what have you that are wider than just our organisation, we want to make sure that we're sharing them wider than just Airedale, I guess. And I think that's it in a very quick nutshell.
Thanks, Amy. That was really, really helpful, and both to yourself, Naheem, and Farida for your sessions there. What I'm hoping that colleagues on this call are getting to realise through those really good practical examples is that a lot of this stuff is really practical, and you can really benefit from it. You can see how it can make that difference both to yourself and your organisation. So hopefully you can start to get that sense of what it's about, and equally what you can get from it, but equally what you can add into that as well. So hopefully that's been useful. What we'll do now is, if it's okay with everyone, is move on to talk a little bit more about the programmes, and we'll invite Delaney, Megan and Natalie to talk about our sponsorship development and buddying schemes. And then we will have a slight question pause before we go on to talk about accreditation. So Delaney, looks like I'm handing over to you first.
Thanks, Tim. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Delaney Gamble. I'm the Associate Director of Finance at Humber North Yorkshire ICB. I'm also the North Eastern Yorkshire Sponsor Lead and Sponsee Network Chair. And today I was just going to go through and give a brief overview of the sponsorship programme and go through the requirements and the process in terms of joining up and getting involved in the programme. If you could just move on to the next slide, Natasha, thank you. As Kathy mentioned earlier, the sponsorship programme falls under the Finance Academy workstream, and it is essentially a 2-year programme providing career sponsorship for high potential finance staff who are from groups underrepresented at director level within the NHS. So this includes females, individuals, Black, Asian and ethnic minority, and individuals with disabilities and individuals that recognise themselves as LGBTQ+. If you could move on to the next slide, please. I thought it would be helpful to briefly explain the need for the programme in the NHS. So the 2019 HFMA skills development census that took place identified that at the director level positions, that representation from staff who are from underrepresented backgrounds was lacking. And this was further highlighted through research conducted by the King's Fund. From a sponsorship programme in particular, what came through loud and clear through the research was also that individuals from underrepresented backgrounds were less likely to access networking type opportunities on an informal basis. So the sponsorship programme is really intended as a catalyst for these relationships to form. Next slide, please, Natasha. A common question that gets asked of us quite frequently is, what is sponsorship? Why is it, how is it different from mentoring or any other training that's out there? And there is a very fine line between mentoring and sponsorship, but sponsorship essentially takes it to the next level and is very much about the networking aspect. And we frequently say that if a mentor generally advises you when you're in the room with them, but a sponsor also advocates and champions you even when you're not in the room. And I think that is something that we frequently bring out through our sponsorship programme in terms of the benefits of going into the sponsorship programme over and above other training opportunities that are available. Next slide, please, Tasha. So there are benefits and roles and responsibilities within a sponsorship relationship, both for the sponsee and the sponsor in terms of making it work. And it really requires dedication and attention from both parties. I'm not going to read through all of these, that's on the slide, but the sponsorship program information that's on the One NHS Finance website will give you a lot of this information. But just wanted to pull out the key bits about being a sponsor. And it's really about going out on a limb for your sponsees, advocating them, and being able to promote them through the networks that we have at senior level across the board. And it's really about being conscious and wanting for the sponsee to succeed. Equally, from a sponsee perspective, it's also about bringing some benefit to your sponsor. So potentially the relationship will bring out something which the sponsor finds useful and brings different perspectives and skills. As Farida mentioned earlier, you know, having a diversity in that brings out a different perspective to relationships. So it's very much about that. Next slide, please, Natasha. So how does the NHS sponsorship program work, and how do you sign up to the program? For you to be eligible to sign up to the sponsorship program, there are requirements that need to be met from both the sponsee and a sponsor. The sponsee requirements, as mentioned earlier, from an underrepresented background, good working within the NHS, really aspire for a promotion or progression in career within the next 2 to 3 years. So actively working towards that improvement from a career perspective, and proactively seeking feedback from others, because it's very much a learning opportunity, and feedback is very key to that. So some of those are the requirements from a sponsee perspective. From a sponsor, things we've mentioned previously, but it's about having the ability to have some influence over the sponsee's career and promoting the sponsee through networks, senior level networks across the board, and in senior meetings, whether it's within the organisation or outside of the organisation. All of this information, as I said, is available on the website, but I just wanted to pick out some key bits in there. Next slide, please, Natasha. So what's the process? What do you need to do if all of that sounds really good and you wanted to join, either be a sponsee or a sponsor in the programme? The first step is to email to register interest with the Future Focus Finance team, email on there. The central team will then follow up with a link to a short questionnaire from a sponsee perspective, or a form that requires filling from a sponsor perspective. Once completed, you'll be added on to the sponsorship database. The way it generally works is that the central team will share a list of sponsors if you're a sponsor interested in joining the programme, and you can choose your sponsor depending on what your requirements are, whether it's from a geographical perspective or from a work-related perspective. And once you've chosen and the sponsor has confirmed their agreement, the central team will introduce the sponsor and sponsee via an email, and then the responsibility of communication from there on in will be with the sponsee to take forward. If you're interested in the programme, but you have somebody in mind who you want to be your sponsor, or vice versa, that's absolutely fine, even if they're not on the database, as long as you pick that up with the central team, and you know both will be added onto the database, and then you can go on to the sponsorship program. As mentioned previously, networks are a real key part of this. So the central team will not only add you onto the sponsorship database, but you will also be put onto a virtual sponsorship networks that's there from a regional perspective, but from a national perspective as well. And this is an opportunity to attend meetings and events and network with other sponsees and sponsors across the country and the region. And this forms part of the development from a sponsee perspective. Next slide, please, Natasha. So the North Eastern Yorkshire Sponsee Network, Kathy's slides, I think, had a number that was a bit less than that. So it's just worth highlighting that we're constantly growing. So we're adding on from both a sponsee and sponsor perspective, So currently the numbers are that we have got 38 sponsors signed up and 29 sponsees, various stages of development and lots of examples of good career progression and success stories. As I mentioned, there's an introductory email matching the sponsee and the sponsor together, that is also copied into me as a network chair, and that gives the opportunity for me to support in any way possible in terms of that sponsorship journey, which has worked quite well with a lot of the new sponsees signing up to the programme. The network is an excellent opportunity to share experiences and support each other with lots of helpful tips and advice about how you go on from your first meeting as well as progressing through into other areas. It is really helpful in connecting and growing your professional network. And as Amy mentioned as well, it's really helpful to have that connection both regionally and nationally. Personal and professional development opportunities are there. So there's lots of things that, simple things like interview skills to building onto other things, but also we have within the network trying to get senior leaders within our community to come and talk to the sponsees about how they've developed in their careers, any lessons that can be learned from that, and which a lot of the sponsees have said have been really useful. And again, there's opportunities, again, Amy's mentioned this as well, about developing presentation skills, sharing meetings throughout the network, and promoting the programme as much as we can. Next slide, please, Natasha. So haven't gone through all of the information that's on the website, but it is clearly there, but happy to take provide any further information and support, either by contacting the central team or myself. And just wanted to sort of say that we are looking actively to promote the sponsorship programme across our region. So we've got really good representation, but there's a number of organisations that still don't have a sponsee or a sponsor identified within the programme. And it'll be really great to see representation across all our organisations within North Eastern Yorkshire. So I am working with the ICS leads that Tim mentioned earlier on to see how we can promote it further within the region. Thanks, Tim. That's it for me.
Fantastic. Thanks for that tour of sponsorship, and really good news as well that the numbers are growing as well. The strength of that network is being able to support each other, isn't it, Delaney? So the more that's on there, even better than that. So we can now hand over to Megan, who I think is going to talk us through development programs. So Megan, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. So hi, I'm Meg. I'm the events and network manager for One NHS Finance. And I'm going to talk to you about the suite of development programs that we have for all colleagues from Band 2 all the way up to CFO. So for all of the programs to apply, you do need to have manager sign off and then submit a 500-word personal statement about why you'd like to be on the program. We do request that you check you can attend all the dates before applying. So to start with, I'll go through the career development programs. So there's 3 of these, and they focus on developing non-technical skills and giving attendees a space to share experiences and overcome barriers. It's a great opportunity to widen your knowledge, gain new experiences, but also build networks with like-minded colleagues across the country. So there's 3 of these, as mentioned, and they're tailored for all different levels. So the first one is called Career Shapers, and that's for colleagues in bands 2 to 4. We're actually currently running this year's cohort, which consists of 1 face-to-face session and then 4 online modules. The next one is due to start September 2023, and that will run through to February 2024. You can register your interest via the website. We've got I'll pop a link in the chat after my session, which will take you to our programs page, and they're all on there. If you register your interest, when we open the applications, we'll send you an email and then you can go through the application process. The next one we have is the Career Developers Programme. So that's for colleagues at Band 5 and 6. And this one is 2 different cohorts. We've actually just finished them, and there's 3 face-to-face sessions per cohort. The next 2, which we're going to run, will be held one cohort in London and one in the north, and they're going to run from October 2023 through to January 2024. Again, if you're interested in this one, please register your interest via the website. These applications are opening March of this year, and that will run through to the end of April. But if you register your interest now, we'll send you through an email, same as we will with Career Shapers. The next one is the Career Progressors Programme. So that's band 7 to 8B. We've just closed the applications for this programme because it runs May, June, July of this year. We've got 3 cohorts, a North, a South and a London for this programme, with 3 face-to-face sessions per cohort. It will run the same time in 2024 if you are interested in signing up to this one. And again, just register your interest and then we'll be in touch when we open the application process. The next programme we've got is the Breaking Diversity Barriers, which is also for colleagues band 7 to 8B, but you have to come from an underrepresented group at finance leader level. And within this one, we aim to empower attendees, to give them the skills to overcome barriers that they face within their working lives. This cohort's actually starting on Monday next week, and it's 3 face-to-face sessions. And we'll look to run the next one December 2023 to February 2024. So register your interest for that one online as well. And the next programme we have is the Go and Beyond programme. So this one's aimed at staff working at band 8C or above. So people looking to take that next step into director level. And it will include development sessions as well as presentations from current CFOs and FDs about the progression from the 8C level to FD. And within this programme, it consists of 5 face-to-face events. And we started this year's programme in December, just gone. So for the next cohort, we're actually going to run it from September 2023 to February 2024. Again, just register your interest online, and when those applications open, we'll be in touch. And then we've got 2 more programmes we want to talk about. We've got the Accelerate Deputies Development Programme. So this one is for deputy finance directors who are looking to apply to the talent pool in the near future or to go for a new CFO role. And we just want to support participants in developing their leadership skills and just helping them prepare for those applications. This is a 2-day programme held in London, and it's going to run in September 2023. And you can register your interest online again for that one. And then finally, we've got the First in Post CFO programme. So this one allows first-time CFOs to develop their skills and build a network of other first-time CFOs, and it just helps them to adjust to their life in their first board level position. So again, a 2-day programme held in London, and this one is going to be October 2023, and we haven't opened the applications yet for this one either. So that's all of our programmes on the suite of development. I know there's quite a lot of information and dates and things, but I will pop this link in the chat, and all of them are on there with a little bit more detail about each programme and the link to register your interest. If anyone has any questions or anything, happy to answer them.
Fantastic, Meg. That was really helpful. And I think the key point you raised there was that there's programmes for all people with different backgrounds and experiences within that cohort, isn't there? So, you know, we've got the ability to support the wide range of colleagues on the call.
Yes,
excellent.
Definitely. Thanks, Tim.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Meg. So we'll now hear from Natalie, then I'll just pause to see if anyone's got any questions, anything they've heard so far. So Natalie, on the buddy scheme.
Okay, hello. So I just wanted to talk through a little bit about the buddy scheme we've been running across the region. So the idea behind it was to set up some small groups to allow people to support each other, have a bit of a time to have a general chat and learn a bit more about other roles and organisations outside of your own job and the sector you work in. So the driver at the time when we set it back in, I think it was September 2021, was a lot of people still working from home, which can be quite isolating. And all the change that was kind of coming, the structural change and just a generally challenging time working in NHS finance. So we thought it would be good to kind of get those little support networks set up. So it was really about just giving people time together. So the groups would stay together over a period of months to develop a supportive relationship. have some open and honest conversations and get to know each other a bit better. Can we go on to the first slide? That's all right, it's got a bit more detail on this. So the first intake we set up, we had 39 people involved and we set up 12 groups. So now a year or so on, we've had a chance to get a bit of feedback from that, see how it went for people, see how it's been working. Some of the groups are working really well and they're going to continue. Some of the groups didn't get off the ground, so there were a lot of challenges around diary time and getting up and running in the first place. But where the groups did get running, the feedback was really positive. People have got some really good things out of it. I think we're starting to kind of see that it's networking for people who don't like networking kind of thing. So it's a really good way of meeting new people, different people that you wouldn't normally come across. But the sort of face-to-face events where you go in and talk to people, some people don't like that sort of face-to-face, some people find that quite difficult. So this is just a different way of approaching that. So the groups were rotated. Further feedback was that the groups that had kind of got up and running and developed those relationships, they would have preferred to stay how they were. So we're going to, in the new intake, we're going to make them a bit longer term. I'm not intending on rotating the groups when they're set up. Can we go on to the next slide? So having had that year's feedback, I'm going to do a relaunch this month. So I'm going to set up some new groups. The original deadline when I put the comms out was before Christmas, but I haven't got around to setting up the groups yet, and it links in quite well with this event to extend it a bit. So within the next few weeks, I'm going to set some new groups up. So yeah, some of the groups continuing. Some people are staying in the scheme that were already in the scheme, but joining new groups, and then we've got new people joining. So far, we've had really good engagement from the North East. So first time around, the majority of people from Yorkshire and Humber, and we didn't have that many people from North East. This time, there's been a lot of people from North East. That's really positive. The scheme is open to all. I think for us, it's been really easy to access the value makers and people that are already linked in with the FFF network. But this is for everyone. So if I can ask people where they can to forward this on to colleagues within their organisation to spread the message as much as they can and get people involved who may not see it if they're not involved with FFF. It's not meant to be a big time commitment, and it's meant to be flexible. So rearrange the meetings as and when you need to. But I think what we've found from the first intake is that if that happens a lot, it's quite difficult, and that's why some of the groups haven't got up and running. So I just ask people to be aware that when you go into it, you are making a commitment to that small group of people, and if you have to arrange the odd one or miss the odd meeting, fair enough. But generally, try and make the times you've committed to. That's great. The groups are going to be 4 people this time. So last time it was 3. But I think setting them at 4 just means that if one person drops out, it makes the meeting still worth happening. All virtual meetings because it's a wide region we're running the scheme over. And what I'm trying to do this time is take feedback from people on whether they want to be in a group with people in similar roles or whether they want to really mix it up. And where I can, I will try and meet those requests. So the more people that I can get involved and the more people that want to be part of the scheme, the easier it is for me to match the groups. So I will within the next week or so get some groups out, but after that I will keep adding people as and when people want to join. It might just be that there's a bit more of a wait for me to slot you into a group or to find people that are suitable for you to buddy up with. So really straightforward, just drop me an email to join. Anything you can do to spread the word across your networks is really much appreciated. And then if we can just go on to the next slide, just to give you an idea of the kind of things that we would expect the groups to talk about. This was really just a conversation starters that I sent around to groups as and when they started, just to give people ideas so you're not sat twiddling your thumbs on that first call, not knowing what to say. So it can be anything. It can be a really specific work issue that you want to talk through or get some help with. It can be more general stuff about your role or your development, or it can be completely non-work based. So my favourite one there is what's for tea, because there's nothing better to talk about than food. So there we go. Just a quick talk about that to see if we can drum up some more interest and get some more people involved. Thank you.
Thanks a lot there, and no doubt a few of us now feeling very hungry after that last reference there, but really useful to see that kind of buddying approach there as well. And again, hopefully colleagues would have seen as well that like everything, it's kind of adapted as it's gone along to, from the lessons that we've learned from running things a bit earlier. So making sure there's enough to be engaged in the process, and equally the kind of topics that's been talked about. So it sounds really positive, and I've seen some good feedback as well in the chat box about it as well. So thank you for that. So just before we invite Paul and Louisa to talk about accreditation, can I just pause there and see if anyone's got any questions on anything that they want to just ask based on what you've heard about so far. So let me just pause if anyone wants to put their hand up in the usual sort of fashion. About absolutely anything so far. Hopefully it's hopefully everyone's found this really useful. I think they are based on the interaction I've seen so far through the chat box in particular. Okay, if there's no questions through that, then let's hand over now to Paul and Louisa, please, if that's okay, to talk to about accreditation. And we saw earlier on about the kind of level of stats for organisations we've had involved so far, but we're now going to talk for a bit more about what's really involved in it, and I would imagine covering what the benefits are as well. So, Paul, am I handing over to you first?
I believe Louise is also on the call. Are you there, Louisa?
Yeah, I am. Afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. I think first we were going to do just a brief introductions about who we are and where we are and things like that, because Louise and I have met, so we're doing this jointly, I guess. But we are in from an organisational perspective, I suppose, at different parts of the journey, which we'll come on to shortly. So I'm Paul Roth. I'm Head of Financial Management at Tees Esconway Valleys NHS Foundation Trust. I've been in the organisation since April so last year, April 22, and we in the summer we worked towards level 1, and we're accredited with level 1. Awarded that around about early October 22. I'll come on to a little bit more when we move forward with the discussion.
Thanks, Paul. And yeah, so I'm Louisa Cowell. I'm Deputy Chief Finance Officer at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals. I'm relatively new into the North East, having worked in the East for kind of 10 years. So I've actually done level 1 twice now. Did level 1 at my old organisation, which was Mid and South East Essex Foundation Trust, and then Sheffield have just been awarded again, kind of the same time as Paul. So we did ours in April 22. So I think, as we've kind of spoken before, Paul and I, for this, there's similarities in our journeys and there's differences in our journeys. So we're going to try and pull some of those out as we kind of talk through. Can we have the next slide, please?
Okay, so we sort of broke down the brief into sort of four key areas, and we've got the first of those areas on screen at the moment. So I suppose I've expanded that into how and why, or why and how, should I say. So from our perspective at Tees Esconway Valleys, we acknowledge that we were already doing a lot or most of what was required for level 1 accreditation, in terms of sort of the way we do things and the culture and the policies and processes that we have in place. So as a senior team, we prior to my coming into the organisation, acknowledged that this is something that we wanted to do in terms of accreditation and working towards that. When I picked that up, like I say, in early summer, and looked at the previous work that had been undertaken and sort of undertook a gap analysis of where we were with the accreditation process and sort of the documentation, it seemed to me like as an organisation, as a senior team, we were focused on evidence, or as if we were going to be audited. And we had evidence for certain parts, but not evidence for certain other parts, although we were doing things. So what we did quite quickly was, and I spoke to some colleagues in my network, and some of those are on this call at the moment. So had a quick discussion around that, and we quickly moved towards getting the paperwork in terms of the accreditation completed based on how we would describe what we're doing, even if we didn't have a policy as such, what we were doing and how we were doing it, to get that populated and get it through, rather than sort of focusing on the evidence, with level 1 being sort of a self-assessment. In terms of, like I say, the why, the how, we completed a gap analysis, and then we moved to the self-assessment and measured ourselves against that criteria, where we had elements that we just needed to, I suppose, formalise. We did that relatively quickly, because going through that process identified that we were doing a lot of the level 1 criteria, like I said, as part of the business as usual.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Louisa.
Yeah, and I think in terms of that thing around what did we do similarly, I think both of us agreed we both did the gap analysis, because I think for level 1, I think probably some organisations that aren't even at level 1 yet, I think, oh goodness, it's daunting, there's lots to do, we wouldn't possibly be there. I think I'd just say have a look at where you are against it already, because I think you'll be surprised as to how kind of well you are doing against it already. I think it's a bit, for me, for the level 1 perspective, it's a bit like if anybody's been doing their HFMA checklist, getting the basics right. It is about a good grounding and a good foundation. So I would kind of encourage people to have a look at where they already are. I think they'll be surprised. We both at Sheffield and Mid Essex did it slightly differently in terms of the drive for us was very much, let's put a group together to think about the things that we want to do differently and we want to change. We focused on that. We didn't kind of let the accreditation drive us. And then it just so happened, and obviously it's not just so happened because that's kind of what the accreditation is about. The things that we wanted to make better and the things we wanted to focus on are the bits in the accreditation that we hadn't quite got to. So actually, when we then did our gap analysis, having been in the groups for a while, we could then see that we were doing the things that we needed to be able to do the accreditation. So I think it's interesting when Paul and I have kind of looked at the different ways that we did it. There's no one way to have a look at how you approach it. And I think for me, personally, to get teams bought in, it's very much not about let's just do the accreditation. It's about let's do some better things in the teams, and then let's see actually if the accreditation helps us with some other ideas or highlights other things we should focus on that we haven't really thought about. So I think that's kind of that bit that I'd say on that. I think the other thing I'd say kind of from my reflection personally is for anybody thinking about doing it is find yourself a senior sponsor. So obviously I was the senior sponsor being the deputy at both organisations, and having somebody kind of at my level to give you that air cover and the headspace to invest the time is really important. So if you can find your senior sponsor to be the one that says, we are doing this, how can I help? What support do you need? I think that is really valuable as well. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So what we have achieved. So kind of as I was saying in the first bit, I do think it's a really good foundation to build on for each organisation to see kind of where you are against some of the basics. And it's a really good foundation to start thinking about how are you doing your staff development and are you really investing the right time in the right conversations. I think it sends a message that development is important to the team. I think that's kind of the reflection that I would take away from both, again, both assessments. And I think particularly from a Sheffield perspective, I think it's had a snowball effect. I can see I've got some colleagues on the call, so they can obviously agree or disagree. But it means actually, as a result of kind of starting to do some of this work and starting to invest in that, we've now got 3 or 4 different development groups looking at different areas. So it's really starting to get some momentum, and we've got lots and lots of people in the team involved in those groups, really starting to make a difference. So I think that's the biggest achievement for me. I don't know, Paul, if you want to talk on that one.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we were slightly different here in terms of where we are with things. So Louisa's got a relatively well-established team, etc., whereas our team are on a bit of a journey. Coming out of sort of COVID arrangements and moving forward, we've had a significant level of vacancies, and this year we've gone through a restructure as well. I suppose what it gives us is the foundations to move forward and a framework to operate within, in terms of that accreditation and I suppose those checklists and like the FSA checklists and actions that go alongside that. Using that as we're building the team and as people join our team on our journey to, like I say, use that as a framework about how we want to behave and work, and the culture that's been in the organisation for many years, but I suppose it's stalled a little bit with the capacity gaps that we've had. So as a senior team, that's something which we really wanted to focus on. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else there, Louisa, just before I move on.
No, I'm good, thanks, Paul.
I suppose just picking up from that one, how we've embedded, like I've just described and also described earlier around when we were accredited. This is relatively new for us, although as Lynn alludes to in the chat there, that you know, 80%, 90% was already being done prior to accreditation. It was just formalising that we are doing that and documenting how we are doing that. So like I said, it's relatively new, and we are wanting to use that as a framework as we move forward. I guess, is it embedded? Some of those things, i.e. the 80 and 90% will be embedded without people particularly knowing it. But in terms of the accreditation and the I suppose the status of having level 1 accreditation, that's probably still in its infancy as we move forward and we recruit and retain staff. So that's sort of where we're at. Louisa, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I think there is differences to kind of how people will feel it's embedded, and almost, I suppose, there's a bit for me that people don't realise it's the FFF accreditation that's embedded, but it's the different feel of the organisation, it's the feel of the development culture, it's the feel of kind of being different and making change. I think that's really important. So the way that kind of we've looked at doing it at Sheffield is, now that we've got our groups agree their objectives for the year. Their objectives get built into our business plan, so it's all embedded within how we are functioning as a team, and what we want to build on. So again, we agree the areas we want to focus on. If they are conducive with level 2, then fantastic. If not, if they're things we think are more important, then that's the most important thing for us. We have also, for our level 2, that obviously we're kind of in the middle of doing at the minute, we have asked the senior team to sign up to say that they are supportive of that, and that therefore they'll be releasing their teams to do whatever we need to be doing, because we've decided as a team collectively it is an important thing for us to do. And having looked at accreditation and looked at level 2, we've all gone, yeah, that makes eminent sense. They're things that as an organisation and as a team we want to strive to achieve. But like I kind of said before, we don't do it as a blanket because it's level 2. We do it because it's the right things for the organisation. And I think that for me is really important. Is it the right thing for the team? And then you kind of get that momentum and you get that kind of passion for wanting to do and to support. And so I think that's a really important thing. I think the other thing I would kind of point out as well, not wanting to kind of put anybody off, of course, is level 2 is a lot more kind of involved. It's really about kind of your growing of the culture and really, like, does it run through the organisation? Having just had a look at the one of the One Finance emails today, we can see that there's 126 organisations at level 1 and only 34 at level 2. So I think that's got to be our next push, hasn't it, of taking it to the next level, but really thinking about are we developing our teams, and are we giving them the right development conversations and the right environment to strive. I thought actually at this point we would just pause, because I know we've got a lot of people on organisations that have level 2 and level 3, and whether anybody's got any kind of pearls of wisdom around how they have managed to kind of embed it, having done it a couple more years. So I'll just pause for if anybody's got any insights I'd like to give us.
Simon's got his hand up there.
Well, thanks for just quickly. I think really great presentation and great insights. I think there's something about working with the grain of the whole One NHS Finance ethos and developing the team in that way. And accreditation comes as a result of that, if you see what I'm saying. And the other thing is, many hands make light work. So real broad engagement in the team in sort of putting the evidence together and everything is another good thing to do. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thanks, Simon. That's really helpful. So we'll just go on to our last slide then, around kind of very kind of poignant to Simon's point around how does it make the team feel. And again, I've got colleagues on the meeting, but I think from my perspective, I think we have got a kind of a reinvigorated appetite to make change, and to see that what we are doing is making a difference, and the team are listened to, their ideas are kind of acted upon. This isn't just a kind of like a talking shop when nothing happens. And again, I think it is important to have kind of your senior backers in that, by kind of giving that support and that headspace and that time to think, and kind of time to thrive. So I personally think, and obviously it's very biased, but I do think it has made a real positive impact on the team, and I think I'm hoping I can see one of them nodding, so that's always good. So I think it has really helped, and it does set a structure in terms of things to kind of work on and aim for, and can progress. And I think the other thing for me in terms of what it's also done is, particularly actually probably more in my old organisation because of how we did it, it's really opened up some networks as well. So we actually had a system version of FFF as well. So actually we had system groups for each of the different kind of elements of it, which is really helpful to do bits like that. But also we shared ideas, and we, should I say, pinched ideas from other people around things that they'd already done that were really good. So there's an amazing skills matrix in the East that has come up north with me. But actually just having those networks and linking those people and really kind of getting people networked to each other, I think it has opened their eyes to a wider NHS family as well, which I think is a fantastic outcome. Paul, do you want to?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Louisa. I think the first point in terms of the effort and the reward, I guess, in terms of we've tried to do this over a few years, and we've got through sort of in the late summer. I think as a senior team, it just shows that the culture that we've embedded and the process and policies that we have in place and things are the right things, and it sort of demonstrates the hard work has paid off. I think in terms of the wider team, I've already mentioned about sort of the capacity issues, and obviously bringing the team in and going on our journey. So that'll develop as we move forward. What we did though was we had a whole away day for the full finance team in November, and one of the sections that we did was around sort of training development and innovation and things. We had a full section on the sort of One NHS Finance and the offering there, because we have got one of the reps within our team. He's recently joined us also, so he did a good presentation to the wider team. So the awareness is I suppose to the wider team is getting out there, and I have had a few people ask me the question of what does this mean and what does that mean. So that's been really helpful too. I think just another little example. One of our previous apprentices who now is in our central financial management team popped in today and asked me about study and funding and things like that, and he was welcomed with a positive response from myself in terms of the support we'll provide to him. And not that he was shocked by it, but he was, I suppose, a little bit surprised that we're supporting him in that journey to the extent that we're going to. So that culture, although it might have been at the forefront with the challenges that we've had with workforce and sort of COVID and organisational issues, it very much needs to come to the fore as we come and move forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Louisa and Paul. That was really helpful, and I think what I found most invigorating from your session then was the kind of benefits that the team found through this as well. So although we talk about this about being organisational accreditation, it's what the team benefits from that I think was really useful. So thank you very much for that. So what I'll do in a couple of minutes time is just ask if anyone's got any reflections or questions they want to ask on anything we've been through for the last hour and 3/4 or so. But just before I do that, first of all, can I just thank all the contributors to and the speakers for this afternoon. You know, putting your time aside with everything else that's going on is really appreciated. And what I hope people have got from this afternoon is just the breadth of stuff that's involved with the One NHS Finance. There is something in it there for everybody. And, you know, I know we've said it a couple of times, but everyone can gain something from this, but equally, hopefully there's something where you can see where you can add a contribution to as well. So thank you very much to everyone that's spoken today, and thank you also to Natasha and colleagues as well for organising the events. If you've got any feedback on what we could do again in the future or something that you think we could do differently, please do feed that back to Natasha as well, because we do want to make sure these are kind of live and very growing kind of events, etc. So making sure they hit the spot for what you you benefit from this. We will share the slides, we will share the recording as well, so particularly for all the links and everything else that's on there as well, to make sure that you can capture those if you want to get involved, having the slips on it overnight and what have you. And as well as kind of encouraging yourselves, please also do talk about this with your other colleagues as well within your teams as well. What's really come out 2 or 3 times this afternoon is that ability to kind of share beyond your current networks and beyond your current organisations as well. And I would encourage all of you to really think about that. The NHS is one connected service, and to really get the most of your own careers, but equally for your own organisations, it's how you engage with others that you really do get the benefit and stimulus from. And there is so much out there that you can learn from, and we all can learn from as well. So really would encourage you to get involved in that as well. So thank you very much for all the contributors, and equally for everyone today that's taken the time out to listen, and hopefully you've got something from it. But can I just pause there and see if there's anything else anyone wants to raise just at this stage? Okay, I'm conscious there's a lot of people on the call sometimes, so if there is anything else that does come out, like I say, please do feel free to raise it. But if not, lots of stuff there in the chat box as well, so please do take the chance as well, just to have a bit of a look on that just before you maybe leave the call. And if not, thank you very much. I hope you really got some benefit from that, and hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.